Hello, today we're going to talk about writing for TV. We've covered so many other modes of writing, just general advertising writing, writing for radio, writing for direct mail pieces, for billboards. It's time to talk about TV spots and how you write well for that medium. So today, rather than you having to listen to me exclusively, I've brought someone who's really an expert on that. And that is Assistant Professor Tammy Hayes in radio, TV, film. She's been in ETSU's Mass Comm and Communication Department for a long time. And
we won't say how long.
No, but she's very experienced in that regard, teaches those classes in RTVF. So I'm going to quiz her a little bit, interview her a little bit about writing for television so that you all hear it from the expert. So, hello.
Hi.
Thanks you for doing this.
Yes, thanks for having me here to share some information and talk to the students. I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you, and I especially appreciate you because, again, this is your area of expertise.
Well,
and it is
maybe. We'll see.
It is not mine. So, just in general, could you tell me what you tell your students and what you know makes for good television, especially television spot or commercial writing?
Yeah, and I was wondering if I was including radio, but apparently you've already covered the radio end of it, which there are lots of similarities there.
Yes, and if you want to draw some of those similarities, that would be great.
Yeah, and I start off usually when I teach my writing class, we start off writing radio. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because students say, oh, I was writing this radio spot and I had TV in mind the whole time. I was thinking visual. And so many people think, oh, TV is the way to go and sort of forget about radio.
Right.
But radio is such a great medium. Mm-hmm. You can do so many things in radio that you can't do in TV. You can come up with spaceships flying in, and you can have all these great things going on in radio and do it with music and sound effects that you have to pay millions of dollars for in television.
Right.
So
people get to use their imaginations.
Exactly. And you paint a picture with words. Mm-hmm. And so radio is great. Wonderful. When we transition into TV, of course, you add that video component, which is great, but it also adds a lot of expense in terms of production costs.
Yes.
So, but with TV, you have to think about, of course, the visual. And I always start talking about TV format. I don't know if you've talked with them at all about format.
Just a very little bit about that.
But usually in television commercials, PSAs, I call it split-page format. Mm-hmm. And so generally you find that there is video on the left, and it's written in all caps. Mm-hmm. And then there is your audio, which is what you use for radio, pretty much just kind of pushed to the right side of the page. And one thing you want to be really careful about in writing a TV script is to make sure that your video shot lines up perfectly with your audio that goes with that shot. Otherwise, you've got a script in which the shot is up here, written up here on the left, and then the audio that goes with it is down here, and your script is just really totally off, and it would be very, very confusing for that producer or production person to try to execute that script. The other thing is shot composition.
Right.
Is another thing that's really important to understand when you're writing for television. So you need to have a basic understanding of what we mean by long shot, medium shot, and close-up. And that's really the basic sequence of television, is that those three shots make up. So you want to be shooting in long shots, some medium shots, some close-ups, and you vary those throughout the production. Mm-hmm. So understanding also what camera movement are, what camera transitions are. For example, knowing what we mean by camera movement would be the terms like truck, dolly, pan, and tilt. So with panning, it's basically when you take your camera and you're moving it left to right and getting a nice panning shot. You see it a lot in the movies. Tilt is real simple. It's when you take that camera and you tilt up and you tilt down. Trucking is when you take the entire camera and move it, the pedestal or the tripod with the camera mounted, and you physically move it left to right with the action that's taking place.
So it's on casters.
So
when it's moving.
casters, or sometimes you'll see in the movies they'll build a little, looks like little railroad tracks.
trolley.
A little trolley, and put a seat on it, and they put the camera person on there, the cinematographer. And then you have dollying, which basically means pushing the pedestal or tripod physically closer into your subject and out from your subject. Another thing you can use, and all of these are tools that the writer can use to get that message, relay that message that they want. Another tool is high angle and low angle when you're writing television scripts. So let's say Lise here, if I wanted to somehow, from my point of view, show that I'm dominant and she's more submissive, then I would take the camera high and shoot down on her, and therefore inferring upon her that she's weaker, perhaps. And also, you know,
Or secondary in importance.
Secondary in importance, exactly. And I could take the camera this high, or I could get even higher, making her more and more weak and submissive. And vice versa. Low angle shots, if you want to write that into your TV script. Get low. Think about where the camera is, not where the subject is, because that's when people get confused.
Right.
When you say low angle shot, you mean the camera is low. And so if I wanted to shoot up on Lise, then she would look very dominant and powerful. And so, you know, start watching, when you watch TV and you're watching movies, notice the use of these things. The dollying, the trucking, the use of the high angle shot, the low angle shot. And as a writer, you want to think about, when can I use those to really tell the message?
Right, not just to be using them to add them in.
Yeah, the same thing with music and sound effects. I always tell students, hey, there's lots of sound effects out there. You can make your own. You can buy sound effects libraries, music. There's lots of music out there. However, you do need to be careful about using copyrighted music.
Right.
But there's lots of it out there, and lots of computer effects that we can come up with, whizzes and bangs and all kinds, and altering the voice. We can do all those things. And if you're going into the studio, or you're writing your script and then going into the studio and just using all those just because you can, that's not the reason to use them.
It's just noise.
It's just noise. You want to think carefully about all the tools you have, like punctuation, music, sound effects, the shots and the effects that you can use in television, and have a reason why you use them, and why you use them, where you put, why did you put, I'll ask my students, why did you put that sound effect right there? Why did you use this piece of music? Why did you do this? And, I want them to be able to tell me why they did it. What was their logic when they were writing this script?
Why was that the best thing to use to relay this message?
Exactly. So some of those are, the basics. The formatting and knowing shot composition, camera movement. Oh, let me talk about camera transitions. You can also write those into your script. In television, the majority of the time, when you change from one shot to another, that's called a cut. And it's basic television, just going from one shot to another. That's standard. If you want something a little different, then you might use a dissolve. And a dissolve is when one shot starts gradually fading out as another shot comes in, and you see both of them simultaneously. And then the secondary shot becomes the dominant shot. And
sort of a soft transition between the two.
Transition, exactly. And so, again, when are dissolves used? Many times it might be the writer wants to indicate a passage of time. Maybe the writer wants someone to go into a daydream, and we see the shot of them sitting in a classroom like this, and then you get a dissolve, and then they're running on the beach somewhere, and we say, oh, yeah, we know what she's thinking about. So dissolves are used frequently for that. You could write that in your script. Dissolve to long shot of girl running on the beach.
Right.
Kind of thing. You have wipes, which are used, and those are a little more difficult to just talk about. It's easier to show them. But if you see something that one shot that goes off the screen, like at a diagonal, or one shot moves into the next one, and the previous shot falls into little pieces, or it rolls up like a page of a book into the next shot, and those kinds of things. Those are wipes and digital effects that you can certainly write into your script if you have a reason to do that. So those are camera transitions.
And if anyone's used iMovie or any of the more complex film editing or video editing programs, you've used transitions, or you've at least played with them or seen them.
Fade to black, fade in from black. You can fade to white. You can fade to any color, but standard in the industry is fade to black or fade in from black. Yeah, and the fade is certainly something that is more of the end of something. It could be you want to fade to black for some type of dramatic reason, or it's typically, we all know it's when you're opening in, you fade in from black, and at the end of the movie, fade to black. Yeah, so that's a more significant break than a cut or a dissolve or a wipe.
Okay, so that's a great introduction to techniques.
Yes.
And tools.
Yes.
For television scripting. Can you share with us a little bit more specifically about the writing aspect per se? Do we write with short sentences? Do we use active verbs? And then, once we've gotten it written or sketched out, what do we do then? How do we proof our own work and get it finalized?
And this is true not only for TV but for radio, and for if you're writing a film script, PSA, a promo. Some of the basics that I talk to my students about would be, just to pick up what you were saying, is absolutely write in active voice. Stay present and active, I like to say. Excuse me. And that is, you don't want to say, we will be having, or we will play it for you on the edge. Why not we play it for you on the edge? Get rid of a lot of those helping verbs and be as descriptive and active as possible with your writing. Another thing to think about is conversation. You want to be as conversational as possible. And so, because what you're doing is you're writing for the ear, not the eye. And you very well know about writing for the eye.
Yes.
You're from a print background.
Absolutely.
And so it's a different writing style.
It's a different mindset, too.
It's a different mindset. And you want to think about writing for the ear, which means writing in a conversational way, using short, simple sentences, being concise. I always tell my students, what I like to drill into them is this, is think about always reading your script out loud.
Yeah.
There is no way you'll ever find the mistakes in your script, and that goes for radio, it goes for anything that you write, unless you read it out loud. If you don't want to read it out loud, give it to a friend, give it to mom, give it to someone, and say, read this back to me, please, so I can listen to it. Because until you listen to it, I think especially when I've been writing dialogue, and I write something down, I think, oh, it sounds so good, and then I hear it, and I'm like, oh, that just didn't come off the way I thought it was going to. You
heard it differently in your head.
Exactly. So you've got to get it off the paper. You have to read it out loud. And also that will also help you to time it.
Yes.
Because with radio, with television, with commercials, PSAs, promos, liners, anything like that, it's all written to time. And you have to craft something that's 10 seconds long, 15 seconds long, 30 seconds long, generally for TV, and there's 30s and 60-second spots in radio.
I told them when we talked about radio that they need to have a stopwatch program or a stopwatch of some kind.
Everybody pretty much these days has got a smartphone, and they all have the little timers on there. It's very, very easy to do that. So there's no reason not to time your script.
But you can't run over by a second or 2 seconds.
No. And some people say, maybe write your script to hit 27, 28, and then that should be okay. I know that with radio, it's easier to do the time than it is with television, because with TV, you may be writing spots that have no audio. I mean, shots with no audio. So what I would suggest is go ahead when you're writing your shots, put a time on there, like long shot of girl running on the beach, maybe in parentheses there, 3 seconds. Then your next shot. And that way you have an idea of how long this commercial is going to be, looking at your video and your audio.
Right.
And just add it up.
That's a good suggestion.
At the end. And that way it helps you. Because in my class, I have the students perform their radio spots, so they have to hear them, they have to perform them, but it's more difficult to do on the TV side.
It is.
So another thing, I was trying to think, you said something earlier that I was going to follow up with, but it's really all about making every word count.
No wasted words.
No wasted. I mean, get in there and really be a tough critic, in that you can. I cut those out of student scripts all the time. We don't need them in television. You can come down to blah blah store today. Why not just say come down? Come down. You don't need you can or they will. Cut those things out.
So commanding, using commands is not a bad thing necessarily.
It's not.
In radio and TV.
It's not. And certainly there are things that are overused, but again, you want to think about your message, keep it conversational, and make every word count. And again, those are just basic techniques. And I think that here's something I wanted to follow up on, because I was grading papers last night, and they wrote a TV PSA. And some of the things I'm going to tell them is don't write a 30-second television spot or PSA. I know they're different, but with all of these things that we write, we're trying to persuade people to do something.
Exactly.
Whether it's to donate blood, whether it's to go buy furniture at a local store, maybe it's to a trailer for a movie. We're trying to persuade people to go see the movie. We're trying to persuade people to do something. Don't write a 30-second TV spot and use only 2 shots. Okay, so I challenge your class to do this.
Okay, here you go.
Here you go. Watch TV, and don't just watch it to sit back and go, okay, like me last night. I'm going to watch Better Call Saul, one of my new favorite TV shows. And watch TV for production value. Watch TV and look at and try to analyze the editing, the writing, the lighting, and also how often the shots change.
I bet they change fast and a lot nowadays.
They do. And it depends on the pace of the spot. You're going to get some commercials that are very fast-paced, like maybe fast food. Maybe if you're talking about insurance, I'm thinking maybe health insurance or something like that, it's probably going to be a little slower paced. I've had students count, so sit down and count the number of times the shot changes in a standard 30-second TV commercial. I guarantee you're probably going to get at least 12, maybe 15, 18 shot changes in 30
seconds. Wow.
So think about if you sat down to watch a commercial and there was one shot that lasted 25 seconds. And there was no, you could say, well, you can incorporate movement of the camera and that kind of thing. No, the way this shot was written, it was one static shot of students. It said long shot of students. Students doing what? I mean, the camera never moved.
And the students weren't really doing anything.
The students weren't doing anything.
For 30 seconds.
For, 25, and then the shot changed at the very end for like that last little tagline to get in there. Wow.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're not as boring as that,
Be a lot of channel changing going on
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely.
That's a really great point.
Yeah. You have to think about the fact that when you're writing for today's radio, for today's TV, and even, TV stuff makes its way to the web, people can quickly tune you out.
Yeah.
You know your habits as a TV viewer and a radio listener, or even your habits on the web, and how quickly how short our attention spans are today, and how quickly we can change things. Say, I'm done with this. Because I ask students, how long do you give a TV commercial or even a radio commercial before you change the channel? 2 seconds?
Yeah, probably.
3 seconds? So that's what you're up against as a media writer, the type of things that you do. So to go on to another thing, you've got to capture that attention from the get-go. You don't have 5 seconds, 10 seconds to hook their attention. You have to get the attention immediately.
Essentially in 1 second.
In 1 to 2 seconds. You know how quickly you change that channel. You're up against that as a media writer.
Now you've scared them to death.
But it's a challenge, and it's fun to think about putting together a message. And also your target audience. And I know I'm sort of skipping around here, but the target audience also, you have to think about them. Who is your audience? And what needs and what interests them, and what are they bringing when they to television or radio when they're listening to it or they're watching it? What would attract an audience of 18 to 34-year-olds, male, female? What's going to attract an audience, another standard demographic group would be male, females 25 to 54. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you want to write a message that's going to hit the younger set of kids 12 to 18. Something like that. You've got to think about that target audience and what will attract them and what will get their attention.
I didn't pay her to say that. We talk about target audiences all
the time.
Yeah, and crafting to fit the audience.
Absolutely.
Because they're so different.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about the difference in a 20-year-old and what they expect, and a 50-some-year-old and what I expect.
Absolutely.
Gigantic difference
Absolutely.
in how you play it.
Absolutely.
How you frame it for them.
Absolutely. Start to pay attention to the types of commercials that you see on television in the programs and the channels that you see them on. You're going to see very different television commercials in tennis matches like the U.S. Open or during golf matches than you would see during a show. I don't know if it's even on the air, like Silent Library on MTV or whatever's on MTV these days. You're going to see very different commercials because tennis and golf, you're going to see a lot of commercials for travel and Cadillacs and Mercedes-Benz because they know
higher income.
So you're also looking at, the demographics and the psychographics of your audience, and advertisers know that. They know where they're buying time in programs and on particular channels to get that target audience. So we have to, as media writers, we have to craft messages and appeal to that target audience.
And that's one of the great things about television and radio. They have specific target audiences for differing shows.
Absolutely.
And so as someone who serves a client, you can recommend differing shows to fit the target audience that you're trying to reach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another thing that I would say be aware of is the talking head. And I know you're getting some of that right now.
Yes. We need some variation in these shots.
We need
really
something,
going
some
on.
things going on here. But if you'll bear with us, try to avoid the talking head because it is so commonly used and it's not the most exciting thing in the world when you are writing television commercials or you're writing corporate video scripts, things like that, in that you just say, okay, I'm going to have a shot of a person and they're just going to talk for 30 seconds. No.
Again, we're falling asleep.
Yes. Think about ways to get your message across and do it in a way that keeps the interest. Maybe you do have someone talking on the screen for a few seconds, but then break that up with B-roll. I don't know if B-roll is a term that's used in television and in news, which would be an example would be if I'm talking right now and I start talking about the CPA that's here on the ETSU campus. While I'm talking about it, automatically we go to shots of the CPA while my voice is still over that video, which would be called a voiceover. And that way it breaks up the monotony of me just talking, and you get that. It's called B-roll. So you can add that into your script. Add, again, music. And I don't know if you want sound effects, but some music would be nice. And also graphics would be nice. So if I say, okay, Lise, there are 4 things that we would like students to know about writing for TV, writing commercial scripts for television, And so I start listing off those 4 things.
And here comes a slide.
And boom. Cut to a slide, a graphic that then pops in, types in point 1 as I talk about it, point 2, point 3, and that breaks it up. I spent some time yesterday talking to students about writing corporate video, which again is a television thing. And I said, what types of corporate videos have you watched, and how were they? Oh my gosh, they were horrible. They were boring. It was a talking head. It looked like it was shot in the 1980s. So you want to avoid those things when you're writing for TV. You want it to look current. You want it to appeal to that target audience, and you don't want just that talking head. You want to have things going on. And now you don't want it so busy and noisy that you're just throwing things in just to do it.
Like a circus.
Exactly.
Don't put them in the middle of the circus.
But think about how you can vary that script up so that your message is presented at its best for that target audience and it keeps their attention, which is what we're trying to do.
Great. She's given you a lot of information in a small package. Unfortunately, we've not been able to dolly back and forth or do tight shots and then long shots. But thank you, Tammy.
Oh, absolutely.
Great information.
Absolutely.
I'll be posting on D2L also format for writing in television, as she talks about with the split, the 2 sides, and that specific type of format, also for radio, which is fairly similar, but you don't have the visual. So we thank you very much.
Hey, can I say one last thing?
Yes, one last tip.
We've gone through the process, and I'm sure Lise has talked to you about the typical commercial format. If you're just sticking with commercials, call attention, create a need, show how your product meets that need, and the last thing is call for action. Call to action. Okay, and then also I would say something. There's a great book on copywriting. I'll just say that I refer to. It's by Peter Orlick. It's called Broadcasting Cable Copywriting. Great book. You can probably find it on Amazon for not that much older editions. But there's a little piece in his book that talks about end your commercial with punch. Make sure that you've got a memorable tagline, something that you leave the audience with that sort of ties your concept together, and you end with something that I remember. Don't go out wimpy. Go out strong. End with punch.
I feel that way about any kind of writing.
Absolutely.
Whether it's journalistic writing, whether it's press release writing, whether it's just general print ad writing, you need to end it with something that makes them remember it and want to do something.
Absolutely.
Or think differently about the product.
Absolutely, because our messages are so quick, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. I mean, you've got to get in quickly, create the attention, but at the end, too, end strong and end with something memorable.
Yeah, don't just repeat and fade.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so we're not going to repeat and fade. We're going to end strong here. Let's do something wild.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you.
Go write some great
Thanks.
spots.
Yeah, absolutely.